Welcome back to Expert Connect, sponsored by Capgemini Government Solutions on federalnewsradio.com and 1500 AM. I'm your host, Jason Fornicola, and my guest today is Dan Ford, a principal with Capgemini. Dan, great to have you on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
So we're here to talk about big data. Start off by giving me the foundation of why it's important.
Okay. Well, hopefully we'll get a little bit beyond big data as well. I think it's kind of an overused term, but it is significant and important because there are significant cost savings when you implement big data technologies. I think the key, for the government and the key for the commercial agencies, get beyond that IT cost savings and start looking at insights. And so you really want to move toward the business value from big data rather than looking at it from an OCIO perspective and saying, here's my IT cost savings from storage, here's what I'm going to save from licensing. That's all great, but what your competitors are doing and what your adversaries are doing, they're using big data to transform the way they operate. They're coming at you with new attacks, if you will, and so you've got to do the same thing to maintain competitive advantage.
Mm-hmm. So when we look at it from the government side, right, where do you see the government struggling to get to that point and to get beyond those IT cost savings?
So I see the government struggling in some of the same places that the commercial sector's struggling, in that there's a lot of pilots, of big data pilots going on in the market, in the federal market. There's one or two pockets of enterprise big data implementations, particularly in the intelligence market. But a lot of our commercial clients, and the same thing's happening I've seen in the civil space, there are pilots of big data pilots, and they're getting some insights out of it, but they really are not transforming the organization. We just did a study, and we found that 27% of the respondents found that they did not have big data implementation, successful big data implementation. They did have some pilots going on. And so I think the key is to get beyond the pilot, get the business involved, get them committed. The pilot actually can be helpful to get the business committed, and maybe it's just the success of the pilot, if you will. But it's the business that's going to fund the enterprise implementation, and it's going to get you past pilot.
It seems
or the mission, if you will, in the federal case.
It seems like a tremendous opportunity, really, to have all of this information at your disposal, right? It's just learning how to use it to benefit and maximize your own agenda, right?
Yeah. I mean, I still would caution people and say, because it can still be sort of conceptual, if you just say, now I've got all this data, it's all in one place, and I can get some analysis out of it. But is that really driving insights, driving change in business operations, and we're really getting the business value out of the data, or are we just doing big data for big data's sake?
So let's talk about big data versus fast data. What do you see the difference between the two?
Okay, thanks for bringing that up. In our study on big and fast data, we found that I think about 55% of the respondents valued fast data over big data. And so essentially you need to sort of take the mentality from hindsight analysis to foresight action, if you will. So insights to action. And so big data is kind of the same old way of doing business, except you've got a new set of unstructured data, and you need the big data technologies to take care of it. So big data is still at rest generally. It's still stored in the physical format, whereas fast data is generally in memory. Big data is still generally used for historic purposes, for planning, for analysis. Fast data is used for transactions, for making business changes during the day. Some of the big data is still, batch processed. So I think the fast data often can still be on a big data platform, or it can be on a traditional platform. It's just the cycle times are much faster, and we're seeing it across industries.
So what tools or tips maybe are available to provide insight at the point of action?
So one of the biggest struggles is that if you have an OCIO and they're cutting edge in technology, but the business or the organization or the mission is not quite there yet, you actually don't get any value out of the data analytics or the fast data that you're doing. So one of the most important things to sort of keep in mind, front and foremost, is the cultural transformation that needs to happen. So this cultural transformation needs to go across the organization, and the way I kind of think about it is, so for years we've heard about we need to be more data-driven, right? You've heard that term before, right? So I kind of think about it, the first step is to go from data-driven to data science-driven. So now you've got a culture that actually believes in data science and believes in machine learning and that we can actually get value out of this. But then the next step is to actually go to an insights-driven organization where we're taking the data science, but we're using it in our daily operations. It's not just, oh, let's get together weekly with those or monthly with those data scientists and see what cool insights or cool ideas they came out of. Rather, how can I use the stuff that they're coming up with on a daily basis to affect the way that I do business or I run the operations?
So you're really talking about taking all of this at one's disposal and implementing it day after day, not periodically.
Yeah, that's actually a good point, where one thing that so big data and fast data. So one thing that needs to be coupled with fast data is actually an agile environment. So you actually need business processes that can change more rapidly. So if you have data science driven insights, but your business processes can't change, then you're not actually going to get the value out of those insights.
So what needs to happen in order for this cultural change to happen?
Okay. So one important tool that you can use to get the cultural change is to bring in cutting-edge visualization tools. So the business, if you bring them a statistical correlation report, they may not believe that, right? But if you show them the scatter chart and you highlight where this particular segment is, and then you show how that changes over time, you create believers, right? And so we kind of see visualization as that tool that connects. It kind of connects like your left and right brain, and it brings people that have mission expertise that maybe don't have the data science expertise, but it gets them into the mentality of what is data science, and actually how can I see this data, and how can I see it moving? So we really see data visualization as the kind of the data art of big data, if you will.
Dan, we have just about a minute left. What are some best practices that you're seeing in government?
So around analytics and big data and other innovative technologies, I'm seeing the government have an increasing appetite for those types of services. And one best practice we've seen around requests for procurement is that the government's actually requesting or requiring commercial past performances because they know that's where they're going to get the best in talent for these types of services. And we also won a $500 million government-wide BPA at GSA to provide Salesforce services, which is a cloud-based platform.
A great conversation for sure, Dan. Unfortunately, that is all the time that we have for today. I'd like to thank my guest, Dan Ford. He's a principal with Capgemini Government Solutions. For Federal News Radio, I'm Jason Fornicola.